So the last box unpacked pretty quickly since it was all comics and books. So I feel like I'm on a roll. I'm going to give number 35 a try. I think this one is also mostly books, possibly a few other things in there. So let's see. Oops. I've noticed that I very often refer to things as, oh, this book is amazing, this book is incredible. Just goes to show how much I really like the collection I've put together. So this looks like it is sex stuff. Ooh. YouTube demonetization. Not that I'm monetized anyway. Sex Parties 101. I met with Simon Shepard. I wanted to start a website based on this. I think I might have had sexparties101.com or .org or something. The Black Book. This was put out by Bill Brent in San Francisco, and he was a friend of mine. He ran a party called Black Sheets, which was a BDSM sex party. Let's see what year this was. 1996, 1997. So this was right around when I was pretty active in all of that. Book on bisexuality. By any other name. This is a newer edition. This book came out shortly after my Buy book, which I don't think I've unpacked yet, but I don't know if there are any in boxes. I might actually have those already unpacked. I might have moved with them. Anyway, this was a second edition, I think, and I did know both of the editors, and I knew a lot of the people who contributed, although I didn't contribute myself. Let's see. I knew Carol Queen. Okay, maybe not as many as I thought. Wayne Bryant, I knew. Carla Rossi, I knew. Yeah, anyway. That would have been 1991, I think. Oh, my parents had all these old child rearing and romance type advice books from the 1920s or something, and I think they might have been collecting them ironically. Let me see, this is 1921, and I just noticed, I've never looked through this book, the Eugenics Publishing Company. Eugenics is the idea that people of lesser genetics should not be allowed to mate. So basically, this is 1921. This was the American theory that inspired Hitler and the Nazis. And yes, it was mostly an American theory, and it was quite popular. Of course, Henry Ford was into it. A lot of people were into it. Wow, interesting. Now, this was my college textbook. I actually got permission to reuse an article from here for my book about basically how nobody is a man or a woman until well into fetal development. More of the same. More of the same. Yeah, it looks like this is the full collection of my parents' strange obsession. Oh, that's nice. Good Vibrations was one of the first really kind of open, women-run sex toy stores before Good Vibrations, which I think opened in, well, we could find out because it's their 15th birthday. But before them, it was mostly just these dirty, seedy things that women would never go into unless they went with their husbands. 1992, yeah, 1977, I guess, is when it was founded by Joni Blank, who I've been meaning to write something about her. She was an important person in my life, personally, as well as to the community. Early book about bisexuality. This was something that informed my book. A lot of this is stuff that, yeah, I mean, it's largely all sex and relationship stuff. Oh, I bought this years and years ago, and now I could actually read it if I wanted to. I think it's around 1990, so same time as my book. Now we get into some of the antiques. Again, more of my parents' collection. I wonder if they'll ever see these videos and if they'll notice that I mean, they knew that I took the collection when they threw out a whole lot of their stuff at one point when they were going to move, and I ended up with these. I didn't hide that I was taking them, but Baby Book, Happy Baby, Sex Life and Marriage. Now I'm kind of curious to look at who the publishers were for all of these, if these were all like eugenics books. Care and Feeding of Children. I think there's actually a Dr. Spock in here. This was, I'm trying to remember if this took a positive or a negative viewpoint. I think it took a very cautious viewpoint of sort of like, oh, what do you do? And of course, they're only talking about, if I remember correctly, they're only talking about bisexual men, by and large, and the secretive ones who are sneaking around. I think that was the negative side of it. Just looking for a table of contents. Yeah, not worth looking for now. Grab a bunch of books. Man, I have a lot of sex-related books. This was something that actually inspired my book as well. This is a later edition, but it's sort of like the Book of Lists or the People's Almanac. It's a lot of trivia, basically, about gay lesbian history by one of the big gay lesbian publishers of the time, Allison. John Stoltenberg is a piece of shit. I just have to say, this whole thing is all about how horrible men are. And I remember one or two of the quotes were like, and very anti-bisexual, basically ascribing all of the worst motivations to the most innocent of things. He became and you might like to think, oh, well, I'm sure justice was done to him. No, he became the head editor of Newsweek. But I remember one of the phrases in there is like, oh, and bisexual men, the same bisexual man who pounds away in his wife's pussy is just going to pound away in your ass and has no emotion and no feeling. He's just trying to be a big man, and just a piece of shit. And unfortunately, I read that and I believed some of it. And it wasn't just about bisexuality. It was about how everything that men do is aggressive and hateful and about control. And it took me a long time to unlearn some of those things. But that was, that was the discourse in the 80s when I was in puberty. This is by Fritz Klein, who I knew fairly well, actually. He lived in the Netherlands when I was here in '91. And he was the big academic voice on bisexuality, the big positive academic voice on bisexuality. It's signed. What do you know? The peonies and gladiolas open onto our enduring friendship. That's very sweet and also very gay. And by the way, some of the he also wrote this. This was what he was most famous for, by the way. The other one was an academic book, but this was a popular book. He was not well liked within the bisexual community because he was an old school bi man who came from the gay scene, and he was seen as somewhat suspect. And in some senses, he was. He did not give women their full due. But at the same time, I think he was unjustly accused a fair amount of the time. More of my parents' stuff. I hope they didn't take a lot of this seriously. I don't think they did, because there's so many of these things. Marriage, what a young woman ought to... Whoops, sorry about that. Card ran out of space. So just moving back a little bit, I think I was looking at some of the books from my parents. Let's see, are those in focus, more or less? Kind of dark, but there you go. Okay. Yeah, I sure hope that they didn't believe all this stuff. I should ask them, actually, what the story was with them collecting these books, because they were from I think they're mostly from the 20s. Well, that's interesting. Woman, Her Power. And I think Talmage might have been an early birth control advocate. What is her name? No, that's a different Talmage. That is definitely not a birth control thing. And this looks like it's from 1888. So yeah, I sure hope they weren't using these books to raise me in 1968. Child Care Today looks more modern. Yeah, that's pretty much it. A bunch of interesting old pamphlets and books. Wow. U.S. Department of Labor doesn't have a date on the cover. Prenatal care doesn't. Oh, 1915. Yeah, I really need to ask my parents what was going on with this collection and how much of it they took seriously. Anyway, that's the whole thing.